Hello, welcome to this edition of Momentum. I'm your host, Robert Green. I'm happy today to be joined in the studio by our new dean, Dr. David M. Ford. Dr. Ford is the dean of the Bagley College of Engineering, professor in chemical engineering, and holds the Ernest and Mary Ann Davenport Endowed Chair. Dr. Ford, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Green. It's a pleasure to be here.
Happy to have you here in the studio as well as have you here in the college and at Mississippi State.
Thanks.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school?
Yep, so I was born in upstate New York, a town called Endicott, kind of in the Binghamton area. Claim to fame, two companies were formed there in the 20th century that kind of changed trajectories of people. One was Endicott Johnson Shoes, which no longer exists, and one is IBM, which does exist. But in a very different format.
Right.
So a small town, but was touched by some big businesses, and some entrepreneurship. And then as far as my degrees, I got all my degrees in chemical engineering, undergraduate from the University of Buffalo, and master's and PhD from the University of Pennsylvania.
Okay. So how did you overcome the peer pressure of not going to work for IBM?
Yep. Actually, it turned out to be easy because I was the only kid in town who didn't have at least one parent who worked for IBM. So
okay.
I wasn't quite indoctrinated.
So. That always helps. So how did you decide, with all 3 degrees in chemical engineering, what made you choose chemical engineering? Once you were in, did you have any second thoughts or doubts?
That's a great question too. So it's a funny story. I think I was in 11th grade. Back in the days when they published newspapers on print and delivered them to your house, I was reading our newspaper one day and it had a list of top 10 occupations by pay. And so chemical engineering was at least in the top 5. I knew I enjoyed chemistry and math. So in a vague way, I knew that had to fit, right? Somehow chemical engineering had to involve chemistry and it had to involve math. It involved a great amount of salary, and I thought so that got me kind of set on that track. Ironically, then I ended up taking an academic pathway with my career, which is not necessarily the way to optimize your income,
right.
As compared to some other tracks that you can take. But that's what set me kind of on that path. And actually, once I did, I never wavered because I actually really loved the subject. When I got there, I found out indeed there is a lot of chemistry and there's a lot of math. I enjoyed both, and the other aspects that came with it.
Yeah. Now, of course, a lot of our students come in, they know what they want to do, or at least they think they do when they start out, and may change while they're here. But we do have some students who sort of know, I want to do engineering or something like that, but not really sure what. What advice do you have for them on how to make that decision of what to pursue?
That's great. I would say a couple things. Gather all the information you can, right? Because sometimes first impressions that you get when you start in on something don't necessarily play out the way you thought, right? So be a little bit patient and make sure that it's not really working out for you. Have conversations with your peers, with some people who are in the field, with your professors, advisors. Talk about what it is that you like or don't like about what's going on. And make an informed decision, right? Because sometimes sometimes it is the best thing to move on. Other times you just maybe haven't quite formed that impression of what that pathway is really going to look like for you.
Okay. So you did choose the academia route, but I also know you worked at a bank for a little while.
Yes.
So how about your career? I know you've also been at some other schools. So what has life been like for you after getting your PhD?
Yeah, so great question. My first job right out of school was a postdoc at Sandia National Laboratories, where I worked technically in the nuclear weapons program, not hands-on.
Okay.
We were doing simulations, so actually molecular simulations of certain components of the weapon systems, which was a nice, safe place to be. And so then after that, first faculty position at Texas A&M University, then I moved to UMass Amherst for about 10 years, where I got a little bit more seriously involved in administration. I was an associate dean there. And then to the University of Arkansas as a department head in chemical engineering. And then most recently, I was at Central Michigan University as the dean of the College of Science and Engineering. So I'm what you might call a seasoned administrator.
Yes, yes. Well, and that's what it takes sometimes. Yep. Yeah. So we're certainly glad to get you from all of those places, and I know we're going to benefit from your experience. But through all of that, what are one or two things you're most proud of that you've accomplished?
So One thing I don't think about this often, but when I do, I'm proud of it. I won a Presidential Early Career Award for scientists and engineers.
Yeah.
It's the most prestigious award that
Yeah.
you can get, in the U.S. as an early career scientist. And I got that basically for a combination of the work I did at Sandia and then afterwards at Texas A&M, and that. It was a great recognition, obviously, but it was also fun. Got to take a trip to Washington.
Yeah.
I did not meet with the president, who was Bill Clinton at the time.
Okay.
He was elsewhere, but since the award was through the Department of Energy, I did meet with the Secretary of Energy, who was Bill Richardson, former governor and congressman from New Mexico, and so that was interesting. He was a fun guy. He was, as you might expect for a politician, very personable, interesting guy, and so that's definitely one, that's one that's, that I'm proud of and that I kind of, sort of stays with me. Another one is building a program called Insight, Integration of Science, Technology, and Engineering, most recently at where I was at Central Michigan University. So in a nutshell, it was an academic program kind of at the certificate level where we got students in different majors working together right from the very first year through all 4 years. And as an administrator there, I think the thing that I can really, maybe the only thing I can take credit for is finding the right person to be director of that program and then finding resources and kind of breaking down barriers to allow her to grow that program. And it has grown in cohorts of size from 30 to 50 to now 75 in their most recent cohort. It is definitely adding to students' lives, and I think it is saving some people for STEM, right? So retaining some people in STEM who otherwise wouldn't have chosen to stay, and that is hopefully we'll do even bigger things here at Mississippi State, but there's nothing bigger than that multiplying effect of creating a program that really makes a difference for students.
Yeah, reminds me of the thing I think of Admiral Nimitz. The key to success is finding the right leader and staying out of their way.
Exactly, yeah. That was absolutely true in this case, yep.
Yeah. So about this time last year, you were sitting in Michigan. What made you decide to think about coming down to Mississippi and to the Bagley College?
Yep, no, I would just put in a shout here for your search firm that you employed. They did a great job of making sure that I was aware of this position. As I mentioned before, I had worked before in the South, right? I'd worked at Texas A&M and the University of Arkansas, kind of that SEC South, land grant institution, type of environment, and I was really taken with it, right? The role that an institution like that plays in changing the lives of students in a state is remarkable, right? It can really give people a pathway, take them from A to B very quickly, right? Or a place at least where A and B are very different, right? If they want to go in that direction. And so the power of that to me is incredible. And I saw that here, right? And I saw this as a place where, it went on from there. I'm fortunate to be selected for the various levels of interviews, and at each stage I was impressed with the people, I was impressed with the place. And I can say, since I've been here, that's absolutely been consistent with what I saw then as well.
Okay. Well, so you're coming up on almost 2 months here, and I know you've been busy, including 5th week, I think it was, you met with the Dean's Advisory Council. So what are some of the strengths you've seen and so far that you really want to capitalize on, and what direction would you like to take the college over the next few years?
Yeah, the strengths I think are people being project oriented in sort of the learning environment, and also the opportunities regarding research and the research centers. So when it comes to people, the students are amazing. I've just, many of those meetings I've had in these 6 weeks have been with students or student groups, and as I expected, they're awesome, right?
Right.
They're excellent. They're extremely hardworking, very creative, very talented, and I just can't say enough about them. The things that they've shown me that they've accomplished, and the things that they're doing, not just at MSU, but in the state and on a national scale. EcoCar, I could go on and on, but they just represent the state and the university so well everywhere, and I'm just really impressed with them. The faculty and the staff have been extremely kind, also very talented, but I would say everybody's been extremely kind to me. I don't know if that's a Southern thing or what's going on, but everybody, you know, it's just amazing, and the donors and the alumni play a very, you know, active role here, and my interactions with them have been just amazingly positive. It's just a group of people who just say, how can I help you, you know, and then and are willing to provide you anything, you know, support, financial advice, you know, whatever it might be, and that's very powerful.
Yeah. Well, the environment we're in right now, the economy we're in, there's some people questioning the value of a 4-year degree. So what are your thoughts about that? What's the value of a 4-year degree, especially in our case in engineering?
Yep. Let me just say emphatically, I think if you want to be a professional in this area, right? If you envision yourself as an engineer, there's no doubt the way things are today, and the way they will be for a while yet, there's no credential that's better than that degree, right? I know it's kind of fashionable to say, well, we can get bits and pieces from here and there and build the skill set by cobbling these things together. I believe that people ultimately learn by doing. You know, there's a process, right? You might read about something, try something, reflect on it, right? Come back and think about why that worked, why that didn't work. And we all know that the process gets better when that's accelerated when you're working with a mentor, right, or you know, kind of a master apprentice type of thing, right? So it's not just in the trades where that happens; it happens in, you know, college education as well, right? Everything gets accelerated if you can learn alongside and from an expert, and there's no better place than a university for 4 years to come and immerse yourself in an environment where there's people like you and people not like you, right? But people like you who share that common vision, interacting with professors, graduate students, other undergraduates, getting good advice from advisors on career paths, interacting with alumni who come through. It's more than the courses you take. It's a great big mixing bowl where if you want to, you can take advantage of a lot of different positive things.
Yeah. We've got a little less than a minute left.
Okay.
So in that time, what do you have to say to prospective students who are thinking about the Bagley College? Why should they come here?
Yep, I would say we are big enough to have everything that you might need, right, to succeed in the suite of majors that we have. And we have a large suite of majors, right, a lot of opportunities. We have world-class facilities because we have faculty involved in research that's, you know, international collaborations funded by, you know, federal agencies and others. All of these opportunities here, but we're also small enough, or we have a small enough feel that you don't get lost, right? The people care. I care. You care. And I've seen it in our faculty and staff. Nobody is going to get lost here unless you really try to. And even then, we'll catch you. So we, you know, whether it's the people and the interaction, whether it's the opportunities and the facilities, we have it here.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And I hate that we're out of time. You and I have had conversations. I know you've got a lot more ideas than we were able to talk about today, so we'll have to do this again. I look forward to seeing you all on our next edition of Momentum.